All right, so today's week 3, Sunday, third Sunday of our letting go. And we're focused on how we can learn to release our fears. And remember, fear is a synonym for worry. So if you're accustomed to worrying, if you're accustomed to being fearful, I want you to just listen today to how you can overcome that. In our 40-day booklet that we gave out, the message for today from Reverend Ellen Davenport mentions the term fear not. And she says that the term fear not is actually stated in the Bible 365 times. Did anybody know that? Probably Reverend Virginia did. But it's so think about that. 365 times, fear not. There's a reason, right? She also talks about the highlights from the Sermon on the Mount, which she's referring to Matthew 6. And I want to read what Jesus said in these verses, 25 through 34. Therefore, I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more than food and the body more than clothes? Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? Can any one of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life? And why do you worry about clothes? See how the flowers of the field grow? They do not labor or spin. Yet I tell you that not even Solomon in all his splendor was dressed like one of those. If that is how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow is thrown into the fire, he will not much more clothe you, you of little faith. So do not worry, saying, what shall we eat, or what shall we drink, or what shall we wear? But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has trouble of its own. So I want to ask everybody, rhetorically, how many of us experience fear every day of our lives in some way? Come on, just curious. All right, let me tell you ways that fear shows up. It might be simple thing like, why didn't that person call me? Why didn't they respond to my email? Why didn't so-and-so get back to me? How am I going to be able to run errands this time of day when traffic's so bad? What if I never get that job? What if I never find the right person for my life? What if, what if, what if? Those simple things are considered worry. They're considered fear, and they don't help us in any way. They paralyze us, and they tend to shut us down from being open to what we need to hear, and also looking in front of us to see what the path ahead shows. But if we could get to a place of uncovering the source of our fears and actually understand them, we would strengthen ourselves and we would grow spiritually. Now, those of you who are participating in A Course in Miracles or have participated, you're well aware of the fact that the Course teaches fear and love are the only two emotions we are capable of. Fear and love. So when you're not in that space of your divine love for yourself, for your life, for the things around you, including the people around you, you're in fear. Fear is created when we've chosen not to love and not to exist within the divine light that surrounds us. The light, of course, refers to God. God and God's divine light. When we're afraid, we pull away from God's light. We create our own personal version of truth. Is that not the case? So when we're fearful, we think we know what the truth is. And we stay in that place and we forget to act from love. And if you're doubting the importance of light, here's a fun little message from Ellen Zuniga this week to show you. We have a little slide for you. I thought that would make you smile. So did she. Thanks, Ellen. A Course in Miracles also teaches that the presence of fear is a sure sign that we have decided to rely on our own strength instead of our divine strength. But in truth, it's in those situations that we should be looking within and trusting that we will be led to the right and perfect answers. So many times this past week, I was telling Jan, this past week was so crazy. I had so many business clients in complete crisis, calling late at night, panicked over things, worrisome. It was like fear had become the theme of the week just so I'd remember to talk about it. But everyone was operating in human truth. It took a while to get people to step back, take a pause, and recognize you can't find the answer when you're in the weeds. If you're looking at all the details and you're making up your version of the truth, you cannot get to a place of peace. The problem is that we tend to forget that fear is not coming from the present moment. Fear is always based on the past and the future. What happened before and what could happen ahead. Think about that. Oh, well, what if I don't have the money for this? Guess what's going to happen? Because I remember that from the past. Or if I can't figure this out, then what's going to happen in the future to me? We're always looking back and then looking ahead. And as Sam and I often joke about, items in the mirror appear bigger than they are. It says that on your car. There's a reason for it. Every moment exists on its own and can never be connected to past or future because the present moment has no connections. It's just now. So we have to think in terms of that. One of the biggest sources of our fear is change. We do not like change, especially changes that surprise us or shock us. So for some people, changes in the weather or warnings of major storms give them that sense of fear. If there are changes in our relationships or loss of loved ones, sudden changes in our jobs, all fuel our fears. But Michael Singer says we have two options in dealing with our fears: face them or avoid them. Think about that for just a minute. If you were facing your fear, would you be panicked over it? No, you'd be facing it. There it is. It's in front of me. I need to deal with it. Those who choose to face their fears are eventually the ones who are able to work through them and work through the cause and release them so they don't keep coming back. How many of our fears are repeated year after year after year? They keep coming back because we never let them go. And the majority of the time we choose instead to keep our fears under control, to hide them. Don't let anybody know I'm afraid. Don't let anybody know this scares me. But how is that helping us? None of us are benefiting from that. The main source of our fear is our inability to control outcomes. We can't control what we're facing, so we become fearful. Michael Singer tells us that we desperately try to create a world around us that is predictable, controllable, and definable, a world that is void of fear. And he explains that many of us spend our entire lifetime attempting to create safety for our lives and control of our lives by defining life according to us, our beliefs, our expectations. But how are we in the divine flow of life if we are always behind the wheel, controlling the steering wheel? You know, I have a really good mentor who's not on this in his earthly life anymore, but he used to say to me, um, "Get in the back seat, Nancy. Let God steer. You're always trying to control." That was many decades ago, but I never forgot it because I was afraid. But the truth is, when I found the freedom that you have when you don't control and the spontaneity that comes into your life when you're not trying to control the outcomes, it's always better than what I could have imagined. Some people function as the me against it. How many times have we said, "It's me against the world," resisting change, struggling with it, being afraid of what might come next? We continue to reflect upon situations of the past as either disturbing, while at the same time fearing the future, all of which is generated by our own insecurities. When our rules for life become threatened, we begin to view situations or people as either good or bad. Think about that. How many times have you said, "Oh, that's not a very nice person"? Well, that is a really nice person. Okay, the only reason for that comment is because you feared one of them. You didn't like how they behaved. They didn't fit your mode of operations. They don't model your belief system and your standards. But we have to get to a place of being able to release our fears and walk in the path of divine light. If we can release them, they will stop coming back. They will stop forcing us to hide out. And if we don't release them, we will continue to find fault in the world to protect ourselves from experiencing our fears again. So we have to make a choice to let them go. We need to stop trying to exercise control over our life and accept that some things just aren't within our place to control. The Daily Home recently sent out a message about fear, and one of my favorite lines was this: "When you are afraid and envisioning all that might go wrong, the energy underlying your fear grows. A tiny flicker of anxiety can easily develop into a terror that manifests itself physically and eventually paralyzes you into action." You know, I remember the amount of fear we had here in 2020 and 2021 before we found our new church home. We were struggling to imagine ourselves in a new place, and especially in a new place that we would love as much as many of us had spent time in the old place. And there was all this fear. The date was coming up for the closing. We didn't have a new place. Where were we going? But fortunately, Jeffrey and I had been through this in our personal life back in 2018 when we had made this decision to move out of our home after decades. We were trying to be proactive and get ahead of finding a place where we'd be able to get Melody into high school and make the transition from private school to public school by high school. And we said, she's got to make friends. Well, here we were spending 6 months. First, it was fun. Let's just look every weekend at neighborhoods we've never been in that are in the school districts we like and near schools we like, and we'll see. Well, first, it was just a lot of fun. And then the fun stopped. After a few months, we weren't having fun at all. And then we put a bid on a house that only met 80% of our expectations. And fortunately, someone outbid us, which was great because we knew it wasn't going to work anyway. We were just trying to be done. The interesting thing about that story, and I won't tell you the whole story, but literally, we had our list in every house, go through the list, and we tried to apply that to here. We got everyone here to think the same way. Because in our case, what happened was one day, a month after we said, we're done, we're never going to make it and move before the holidays. It's too stressful. Let's be done. And there I was sitting in New York City with a client, and Jeffrey sends me a text and says, check this out when you have a minute. I had 1 minute to check it out. I see it. I quick glance at it, and I'm thinking, this looks like it meets everything. I'm going to the airport at JFK. He's FaceTiming me from the house with Melody, showing me every room. I land at 1 a.m. At 9:30, I'm in that house, and we bought it. And in 24 hours, after months, there it was. The perfect thing. It met 98% of our needs. And we were done. So we brought that whole story back to Unity and said, we need to let this go and trust. And in one day, we found a place. And 3 days later, we bought it. Here we are. And in case you didn't notice, in 2021, we said we have to tear down that youth building that's there and put up a new one. And we're going to have to remodel Fellowship Hall. And all these things we needed to do. And here we are 3 years later. They just laid out the square, in case you didn't notice, for the new building. The foundation's being poured. The building's going to be coming in a couple of weeks. In a month. Our new bathrooms start this week, the remodel over there. Our new patio will be in within 4 weeks. All these things that we never knew we were going to do. And we paid off all our debt, all at the same time. All that panic. Church was out of money. All that worry. And here we are. Fear not. We just should have said it 365 times and it would have been a lot quicker. I want to share a poem with you that I received from Sharon Hall. I'd never seen it before, but maybe you have, from Khalil Gibran, about letting go of fear. It's called Fear. It is said that before entering the sea, a river trembles with fear. She looks back at the path she has traveled from the peaks of the mountains, the long winding road, crossing forests and villages, and in front of her, she sees an ocean so vast that to enter there seems nothing more than to disappear forever. But there is no other way because the river cannot go back. Nobody can go back. To go back is impossible in existence. The river needs to take the risk of entering the ocean because only then fear will disappear. Because that's where the river will know it's not about disappearing in the ocean, but of becoming the ocean. Isn't that beautiful? Such a great reminder. And when you hear the song that the band is going to play in a little bit, I want you to listen to the words. I swear we didn't talk, and it matches that message. Let's review our takeaways for today. Letting go of fear requires the following. Fears cannot exist in the present. It is generated by experiences. Presence of fear is absence of God and is caused by self-reliance versus faith. Fear alone is powerless. Fear gets its fuel from us. Releasing fears is freedom, and love becomes our path forward. Our affirmation today is I release my fears. Let's say that together. I release my fears. And our quote is from Michael Singer. The purpose of spiritual evolution is to remove the blockages that cause you fear. Let's take that in. And so we pause for a moment to recognize the freedom that exists in letting go of fear. The freedom to become part of that ocean, to move into a much greater mindset, be part of something so much bigger than we are, by simply using our faith over fear to guide us, to remind us that there is nothing to fear but fear itself. And so it is. Amen.